EVO. The battle had already been lost before the first shot was fired. In the late summer of 1915, along the eastern front of the First World War, the Russian army began to fold in on itself. Not with drama, but with exhaustion. Entire regiments vanished into forests or surrendered en masse. Rifles were shared between soldiers, sometimes passed down the line. One man fires, another waits for him to fall. Boots disintegrated in the mud. Ammunition ran out. Orders arrived late or not at all. And somewhere far from the front, a man in a pressed uniform studied maps that no longer mattered. When Nicholas II made the decision to personally assume command of the Russian army, it was meant to be a gesture of strength, a symbolic return to the ancient idea of the warrior czar. Instead, it bound his name directly to catastrophe. Every defeat became his defeat, every body his responsibility. By the end of the year, Russia had suffered millions of casualties. Cities starved, railways collapsed. Inflation erased savings overnight. Bread riots broke out not in distant provinces, but in Petrograd itself. Soldiers sent to suppress the crowds joined them instead. The empire was rotting from the inside, and Nicholas was still signing orders. And this is where the story truly ends, not in a basement, not in gunfire, but in the moment when a ruler loses the faith of his army. After that, everything else is procedure. Welcome back to the Ides of April. This is the assassination of Nicholas II. Chapter 1. The Abdication. So power doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes. By early 1917, Russia was a country at war with the outside world and at war with itself. The Romanov Dynasty, 3 centuries old, was buckling under pressures it had neither the language or the machinery to address. Nicholas II had ruled as an autocrat in an era that no longer believed in autocracy. He was devout, sincere, and catastrophically unsuited for modern governance. And what he lacked most was adaptability. As factories shut down and bread lines stretched for miles, Nicholas remained insulated, physically and psychologically, from the scale of the crisis. Reports were filtered, warnings were softened, advisors contradicted one another. And in Petrograd, the idea of the Tsar as a benevolent father figure collapsed into something colder, a symbol of indifference. When strikes erupted in February, they spread faster than the government could respond. Women marched first, textile workers demanding bread, then metal workers, then students, then soldiers. Within days, the capital was effectively ungovernable. Nicholas was away when it happened, and that detail matters. The Emperor of Russia learned that his regime was collapsing from a train car, cut off by sabotaged rail lines, receiving fragmented updates as the political world he ruled disintegrated in real time. Ministers resigned. The Duma declared itself in opposition. Military commanders, his commanders, began advising abdication as the only path forward. Not to save the monarchy, to save the country. On March 15, 1917, Nicholas II abdicated the throne. At first, he attempted to pass power to his son Alexei, then reversed that decision, recognizing that a child with hemophilia couldn't survive the coming storm. Instead, he named his brother, Grand Duke Michael, as successor. But Michael refused. 300 years of Romanov rule ended not with revolutionaries storming the palace, but with a pen, a document, and a quiet acknowledgement that the crown had become untenable. Nicholas believed, perhaps sincerely, that abdication would remove him from history's line of fire. That by stepping aside, he would preserve his family, spare Russia further bloodshed, and retreat into private life. This was his final miscalculation. Because abdication ends authority, but not meaning. To the Bolsheviks rising in the chaos of war and famine, Nicholas was no longer a ruler. He was something more dangerous. A living symbol, a reminder of the old order, a rallying point for counter-revolution, a bargaining chip for foreign powers, a story that could be rewritten if he remained alive. And symbols cannot be allowed to linger. Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children were placed under house arrest, first in palaces stripped of servants, then moved east, farther from the front, farther from scrutiny. Their lives narrowed, their world shrank. The rituals of empire vanished, replaced by routines of confinement. But even in captivity, they remained Romanovs. They carried with them the residue of power. Memories of Easter mornings marked by jewel-encrusted gifts, of Fabergé commissions that celebrated resurrection and continuity. Objects designed to suggest permanence in a world already dissolving. Outside their windows, history accelerated. Revolution hardened into ideology, civil war loomed, and the question the Bolsheviks could not escape began to take shape. What do you do with a man who no longer rules, but still represents everything you're trying to destroy? Nicholas II thought history had released him, but history had only delayed its verdict. Chapter 2: 5 Children and a Dynasty. Empires rarely fall all at once. They linger, alive in objects, rituals, and family. When Nicholas abdicated, he didn't stop being a father, and in many ways, that identity mattered more to him than the crown ever had. The Romanov household was not small, and it was not symbolic, nor was it abstract. It consisted of 5 children, each with a name the world would later memorize: Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, the heir whose body betrayed him from birth. Alexei suffered, as stated, from hemophilia, a genetic condition that turned minor injuries into mortal threats. Every bruise carried consequence. Every fall risked catastrophe. The condition shaped the family psychology and, quietly, the fate of the empire itself. It drew Nicholas and Alexandra inward, away from ministers and generals, toward mystics and faith healers. It made secrecy habitual. It made vulnerability dangerous. This was not a court built for transparency. And yet, inside the palace, the Romanovs tried, sometimes desperately, to maintain normalcy. Lessons continued, birthdays were observed, Easter remained sacred. Even as the empire fractured, the rhythms of family life persisted, like muscle memory. Easter especially mattered. Each spring, the imperial family exchanged gifts that were never meant to be practical. They were meant to reassure. Since 1885, Easter had been marked by the presentation of a single, extraordinary object, a jeweled egg commissioned from the house of Fabergé. Under Nicholas, the tradition expanded. 2 eggs every year, one for his wife Alexandra, one for his mother Maria Fyodorovna. Each egg contained a surprise: a miniature carriage, a portrait, a clockwork swan. They were intimate objects, designed to be opened privately, held in the hand, understood as symbols of continuity and rebirth. They were also propaganda, just subtle enough to pass as affection. By 1917, that contradiction had become impossible to ignore. The family still possessed jewels, but not freedom. They still inspired loyalty, but not control. Guards replaced servants, letters were censored, windows were whitewashed. Their world collapsed inward, room by room. Yet even in captivity, the Romanovs remained dangerous, not because of anything they could do, but because of what they represented. 5 children meant 5 potential futures, 5 claims, 5 names that could be resurrected in exile, 5 reasons for monarchists to wait rather than surrender. And Alexei, fragile, sickly, royal, was a particular problem. A living heir complicates revolutions, but dead dynasties don't. And the Bolsheviks understood this instinctively. As the Civil War ignited and White Army forces pushed east, The Romanov family was moved east again, this time to Yekaterinburg, a city selected not for comfort but for isolation. The Abdication house was renamed with bureaucratic efficiency, the House of Special Purpose. Special purpose meant contingency. Inside, the family followed rules that they didn't write. Outside, decisions were being made that no longer required consent. The logic of revolution had shifted from reform to permanence, from negotiation to elimination. Because revolutions can tolerate former rulers, they cannot tolerate symbols that still breathe. And the Romanovs, 5 children included, were still breathing.
Our dogs are family, and they deserve food that treats them that way. That's why Ollie makes meals with fresh, human-grade ingredients you can actually recognize. Chicken, beef, carrots, blueberries, spinach, no fillers, no byproducts, just real nutrition slow-cooked to keep your pup healthy and energized. Shinier coats, better digestion, more energy, and with 5 protein-packed flavors like beef with sweet potatoes or turkey with blueberries, your dog may be eating better than you. Every plan is customized to your dog's age, breed, and activity level, and delivered right to your door in perfectly portioned, easy-to-serve packs. Simple, fresh, and made just for them. Now here's how you can try it. Your dog's well-being starts with their food, and that's why Ollie delivers fresh, human-grade food that your dog will love. Head to ollie.com/IDES. Tell them all about your dog and use code IDES to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's ollie.com/IDES and enter code IDES to get 60% off your first box. Most people can't name every financial account they have or what any of them are really worth. A 401k here, an old brokerage there, a few credit cards, maybe a forgotten savings account. It's a kind of financial fog, and it's costing people money. Monarch cuts through that fog. It's an all-in-one personal finance platform that brings your entire financial life together, cleanly, clearly, and instantly on your laptop or your phone. Link your accounts in minutes, see where your money's actually going, and take control of it. Monarch does the heavy lifting. Smart categorization, powerful visuals, and planning tools trusted by professionals. It's been named Best Budgeting App of 2025 by The Wall Street Journal, Forbes' Best App for Couples, and listed among CNBC's top fintech companies in the world. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code IDES at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code IDES.
Chapter 3. Why the Bolsheviks Could Not Let Him Live. Revolutions don't fear the past. They fear its return. By the spring of 1918, the problem facing the Bolsheviks was no longer philosophical, it was logistical. Russia was collapsing into civil war, and the future of the revolution depended on speed, decisiveness, and the elimination of uncertainty. And Nicholas II was uncertainty embodied. Officially, he was nothing, a former emperor, now a private citizen, a man who had abdicated his throne more than a year earlier. But revolutions don't operate on official language, they operate on symbols. And Nicholas remained the most potent symbol that Russia possessed. He was proof that the old world had existed, and proof that it could, in theory, exist again. As white army forces advanced and foreign governments weighed intervention, the Romanov family became a liability the Bolsheviks could no longer afford to manage. Alive, Nicholas was a rallying point. Alive, his children were futures waiting to be claimed. Alive, the family represented a bargaining chip, one that could be stolen, traded, or weaponized against the revolution. Dead, they were none of those things. The Bolsheviks understood something that monarchies often forget. Legitimacy does not vanish when power does. It lingers, it haunts, it invites nostalgia, and nostalgia is counter-revolutionary fuel. This is why there would be no trial. A trial creates a platform creates martyrs, and martyrs create movements. Instead, the decision was reduced to necessity. The Romanovs were moved farther from the front, deeper into territory controlled by revolutionary forces, to Yekaterinburg, again for its isolation and also ease of containment. And this house of special purpose, a phrase so bland it almost concealed its intent, because special purpose ultimately didn't mean imprisonment. By July, the calculus had hardened. The White Army was closing in. Rumors of rescue spread, guards grew nervous, authority fragmented. Orders became verbal. Responsibility became diffuse, precisely the conditions under which irreversible decisions are made. There is no surviving document signed by Lenin ordering the execution of the Romanovs, but there doesn't need to be. Revolutions rarely leave clean paper trails when doing what they believe history requires. What matters is not whether the order came from Moscow, but that everyone involved understood the logic. Nicholas could not be allowed to fall into enemy hands. His survival, even as a prisoner, posed a political threat greater than his death. This wasn't vengeance. This was preemption. The Bolsheviks didn't kill Nicholas because of what he had done. They killed him for what others might still do in his name. They were not eliminating a man. They were erasing a possibility. And in revolutionary terms, that distinction makes all the difference. By the night of July 16, 1918, the family was still alive, still eating meals together, still following routines, still believing, perhaps, that abdication had purchased safety. But it had not. The decision had already been made, and what remained was only execution. History often pretends that abdication is an ending, that once power is surrendered, the danger recedes. But revolutions don't operate on resignation letters. They operate on memory. By the summer of 1918, Nicholas II was no longer a ruler, but he was still a story. And stories are harder to contain than armies. He represented a past that could be revived, a lineage that could be restored, a future that contradicted the one the Bolsheviks were trying to force into existence. This is the quiet truth beneath most political assassinations. They're not about rage. They're about closure. And not moral closure, historical closure. The Romanovs weren't killed because the revolution hated them. They were killed because the revolution needed them gone. And once that decision is made, the manner of death becomes almost irrelevant. Almost. Next week on the Ides of April, we descend into the final hours. The basement of the Abdication house, a hastily assembled firing squad, jewels sewn into corsets that turn bullets into delay. A moment so chaotic, it refuses to behave like history usually does. And then, after the bodies are gone, the myth begins. A missing daughter, a world desperate for one survivor, and a century-long refusal to accept that sometimes history doesn't leave loose ends, only unanswered longing. That's next week in Episode 2, The Night and the Myth. Because when an empire dies, the story never ends where the blood does. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you're following the Ides of April and the entire EVO Creative lineup wherever you get your podcasts. The Devil Within, Criminal Mischief, Taboo Treasures, and more, so you never miss an episode. Ratings and reviews genuinely help independent shows grow. If you have a moment, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more than you think. And yes, we read them all. You can watch full video episodes, clips, and exclusive from all EVO Creative shows on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to EVO Creative on YouTube and turn on notifications so you don't miss new drops across the network. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates, visuals, and behind-the-scenes content. At The Devil Within Pod, at Ides of April Pod, and at EVO Creative. Explore all of our shows, projects, and upcoming releases at evocreative.com. And if you have a story, a tip, a correction, or something you think we should cover, please email us at info@evocreative.com. And if you know someone who loves true crime, history, horror, or stories that refuse to let go, share the episode. Word of mouth keeps this network alive. And don't forget to check the show notes for great deals from the amazing companies that still support long-form storytelling. Until next week, stay safe out there. The Ides of April is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Ides of April, I'm your writer and host, Brandon Morgan.